Okay, do one more and try to lift your head a little bit.
Okay. I don't deserve this. To die like this. I was building a house. Deserves got nothing to do with it.
Clint is a very learned storyteller.
And roll it! Tony, speed!
He always makes an interesting movie. Always makes an interesting movie. Always.
Now push it towards him. Push it. There you go.
Clint Eastwood's films have very happy companies, and he comes in under schedule and he comes in under budget every single time. And the greatest influence he's had over me is that's something that I strive to do, but I've never been able to do it as well as he has.
If you have a good screenplay, you're 50% there, and if you cast it well, you're at 40% on top of that, and there's 10% of which you can screw it up.
Go ahead. Make my day.
For most actors, being the biggest movie star in the world would be enough. But for Clint Eastwood, a restless desire to move behind the camera started early.
When I was a young contract player back in the early 50s, I used to go down to the sound stages at Universal all the time, and I was always curious about the directors and curious about how they were putting it together, and I'd watch various shows. You start finding out what you like and what you don't like about various characteristics that directors have. And finally one day I started thinking, I had to try this myself.
As a fledgling director, Eastwood drew inspiration from filmmakers he admired. First and foremost, his Dirty Harry director, Don Siegel.
Don was definitely the greatest influence for me. Don was a guy who could get a lot of film, a lot on film with very little in the way of budgets, and I tried to grab that. Now, I don't shoot quite as lean as Don did, but his influence on me was be decisive in what you want to do and what your program is for the film. He was terrific that way. He was a little different than Sergio, who was another influence of mine.
As a well-established television star, Eastwood had tried, without much success, to break into feature films. It took a young director from Italy to see his big screen potential. The director was Sergio Leone.
He didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Italian when we first met. So there's a lot of hand language going on back and forth, which he was much better at because he's Italian and I'm not.
I think Leone's influence was that he had a very good visual sense as well as a sense of humor. He really liked panorama and knew how to do panorama, but he was bold. He was extremely bold. He was never afraid to try anything new. It was a great adventure when it happened, and when it kind of clicked, it was naturally a great adventure for me because it led on to other things.
Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns made Eastwood an international superstar. Hollywood was now anxious to be in the Clint Eastwood business, as he quickly discovered when pitching his debut film as director to the head of Universal Studios.
In 1970, I found this script, Play Misty for me, and I was just fascinated by it. So I went to Lou Wasserman and said, you got a project here that I'd love to do, and I'd like to direct it. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And I was completely surprised. In fact, I didn't know what to say because I was expecting him to ask a lot of questions, and he said, sure, that'd be fine. And so I walked out of the office, and I walked down, and my agent, Lenny Hershan, was there with me, and he came to me and says, yeah, there's just one additional thing that they forgot to mention. They don't want to pay you anything. I said, they shouldn't pay me anything. I'll pay them. I should have to prove myself before you worry about getting paid. I went ahead and did the picture, and that became my first film.
This is Dave Garver with a little verse, a little talk, and 5 hours of music to be very, very close to each other.
I knew Clint as a humongous movie star, just this international icon. And what changed me completely, and I think changed most of the rest of Hollywood, was when all of us saw Play Misty for me for the first time and realized that there was a storyteller, not just an actor, whose job it was to tell someone else's stories. It was very Hitchcockian, and it was also modern.
It's one of those pictures where the plot doesn't really matter after a while. You like watching the film because you like the characters. We like the development of how it escalates the story.
Careful. I might put your eye out.
He kept the spirit, I think, of a classical cinema, of American classical cinema, and translated it for his time.
Have to get you all nice for David. For David.
And like he began to realize, I could do this.
With Don Siegel's efficiency and decisiveness in one hand, and Sergio Leone's boldness and dry wit in the other, Eastwood began a directing career firmly rooted in classic American cinema.
Clint goes back to the studio days. He is a kind of a throwback to the old days of movie making.
The same appreciation we have for William Wyler's films, and certainly John Ford and Howard Hawks, is what I find in Eastwood. I think maybe Clint is the last vestiges of the golden age of the Hollywood studio film. There's no doubt that he is the link from the cinema that I grew up with and loved to the modern day. First of all, the invisible editing. There's a simplicity to the style.
I went off. I bashed his head on the parking lot. There's blood everywhere. I might have killed him.
Killed him?
His personality as a filmmaker is not forced on you. And that, for me, is in the tradition of a Wyler or a Ford.
The thing about Clint Eastwood is his films are put together in a much more old-fashioned Hollywood style.
That style is gone. It's not there. The last link, I think, is with Eastwood.
Like the filmmakers of Hollywood's golden age, for Eastwood, movie making is storytelling. The screenplay is paramount.
He won't start a project with half of a script or 2/3 of a script or 3/4 of a script. Just the whole script is done. That's what he's going to shoot. He's not going to change a word in it. He knows precisely what the story is, and he knows when he has it on film.
What Clint does is he takes a piece of material and he understands it in a very personal way.
If I like the material and I'm set to do the project, what I'll do is I'll read it. I've read it a few times. I'll sit and think about it a while, and then I'll wait maybe a couple weeks and then read it again.
My experience has been I've watched his movies coming to life on location, and that's why he doesn't like to have a lot of script meetings. He doesn't just want to talk it to death.
I tried to do some rewrites on Unforgiven with David Peoples, and he said, go ahead, anything you want to do with it. And so I started writing and fooling with things and changing things, and all of a sudden I realized I was wrecking it. So I called him up and I said, forget what I said about that. I said, I'm just going to shoot it the way it is. The more I tamper with it, I'm killing it with improvements. So you have to know when to get out of the way.
I really think that Clint only sees and hears the movies when he gets onto location with the cast.
Clint Eastwood's sets are unlike those of any other director, reflecting the personality of the man at the top.
He himself generates the atmosphere. He's a very quiet man. He's a very meticulous man. He's a charming man. And that goes right through the entire company.
Anybody who is going to work with Clint searches out the people who have to find out if any of the stories are true. It turns out they all are. All of the stories are true. He does not say action. He does not say cut.
Hey, stop. Okay, stop.
They don't even say rolling. His crew is trained to settle it down. So if you're approaching the set when they're about to start doing a scene, you see all these people that go like this, and that means we're rolling.
He has a very tight-knit crew of people that he's been working with for years, movie veterans, so to speak.
Wonderful thing working with Clint is it's almost like the old studio days. I've been at it for 63 years. Everybody has worked with Clint, and we all know each other, so it's kind of like old home week.
It's a great team, and that's why I use them over and over again, because I know they're reliable.
The terrific respect that there is for all the workers, all the technicians, and the actor in front of the camera.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. I'll have that 32, Bob.
I've done pictures before when I thought I was absolutely brilliant. All right, cut. Next setup, please. Okay, move over here. Get that thing, move up, And you're totally forgotten.
Now, little Bill, you will leave me at the mercy of my enemies.
There's no claim for what you have done, but here it's the opposite. To hear you do something well, they all say, great. The whole crew go, great, that's great, great. You know? They're willing you to succeed. You know, they care about what you're doing.
Boss, that little house we talked about, I bought it.
Well, smart girl.
In his 50 years at Warner Brothers, Eastwood has earned the right to take risks on subject matter most directors would be afraid to touch.
Clint has been very fortunate in that he has an arrangement with Warner Brothers. And over the years, because of his star power, he's used that power to do the kinds of movies that he wants to do. $1 Million Baby, it's just, you know, that's not the kind of movie that a studio would make.
If I was thinking straight, I'd go back home, find a used trailer, buy a deep fryer and some Oreos. The problem is, this is the only thing I ever felt good doing. If I'm too old for this, then I got nothing. That enough truth to suit you?
He knows what he wants. He knows how to get it. And he knows when he got it. He didn't sit around doing it 4 or 5 times. And so that kind of energy, it's almost, I hate to use this term because Clint will get pissed off at me. It's not that's unpolished. It's real.
Well, what about you, Scrap? What did your manager do? You were a hell of a fighter, a lot better than Willie. He get you a title fight, or did he just bust you out banging your head against other people's fists until you lost your eye?
I had my shot. I went out swinging, and no man can say I didn't.
Yeah, well, I remember. And excuse me if I didn't want my fighter spending the second half of his life cleaning up other people's spit.
Yeah, right. Right, you're the smart one. You're the one learning Greek.
It's Gaelic.
Well, you just protected yourself out of a championship fight. How do you say that in Gaelic?
I remember something he said at that time, which has always stayed with me. He said, you always aim for the bullseye, but you don't always hit it. So it's a nice thing when it works out.
I think on the inside, he's gripped with a passion to tell these stories. He doesn't exude the passion publicly, but the passion only comes out in the developer that develops the dailies.
All right, I'm coming out. Any son of a bitch takes a shot at me, not only gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill his wife, all his friends, burn his damn house down.
Eastwood's passion for filmmaking has never been more apparent than in his greatest Western, a film that turns the legend of the mythic gunslinger inside out.
I was unfamiliar with the Clint Eastwood canon. I think I had seen Play Misty for Me and thought that was a great movie, but I don't like the spaghetti westerns, with all apologies. It's just not a genre that speaks to me. But Unforgiven was really the film that made me think, my God, this is a great artist.
You beat William Money out of Missouri. Killed women and children.
That's right. I've killed women and children. Killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another. And I'm here to kill you, little Bill.
Unforgiven is a sort of a culmination, I think, because he's not afraid there to take on a really horrible character and say, yes, that's me. That's who I am. You're the man who killed those women and children, that's right.
I thought Unforgiven talked about the regret of violence. What's it like for anybody all of a sudden look back on it one day and you say, what the hell have I done?
I'm dying.
nobody. Don't tell my kids. None of the things I tell, you hear me?
All right, Bill.
I would put Unforgiven in the category of classic for me. With Shane and with The Searchers and Red River, because I felt it leaned on its literacy.
Although not technically a Western, Cry Macho gave Eastwood the opportunity to revisit some familiar terrain, both geographical and emotional.
The thing that everybody loves to see is Clint in a cowboy hat and on a horse. He hasn't been on a horse since Unforgiven.
Let's see if we're the right leg length.
The first day that we filmed the scene of him up on the horse, the crew, they were just like all so excited. It was a special moment. He's back in the saddle again.
Good. Put your heels down. Your dad's gonna be a happy man. See that.
There's also sparks for a relationship with a woman in his life again.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh, good.
yes.
I'm catching on to this stuff.
See?
It is a love story, yeah. It's got that in it. It's got a lot of different other aspects to it. And an audience just has to kind of go along with the journey.
It's very touching, and it gives you all of those great iconic moments that you've seen in all other Eastwood films. You want him to go and ride his horse off into the sunset.
Yeah. I hear you loud and clear.
The most amazing thing about Clint Eastwood is, among all of us, Clint is the most eclectic. His stories change, his approach to visual storytelling changes. He's a chameleon in that he adapts to the book or to the screenplay, and the script dictates his style, and so he changes up, because Clint, like my old heroes of, people like the Michael Curtizes and the Victor Flemings of the world, Clint, to me, fell into that genre where a filmmaker could change his style and surprise us and never come out of the same hole.
Brace for impact.